I went into my basement for the first time in months because the power in my house kept flickering like something was messing with it on purpose. I live in a small rental just outside town. The kind of place that looks normal in the daytime but feels wrong at night. The basement door is in the kitchen behind this flimsy folding door that never shuts right. Every time you open it, it makes this long creaking sound like the house is annoyed you're going down there. That night around 11:40, the lights blinked twice, the TV reset, and my phone started doing that weird thing where it said it was charging but the battery still dropped. I sighed, grabbed a flashlight, and told myself I'd be down and back up in under a minute. I didn't even put shoes on, just socks on cold tile. Cause I really thought this was gonna be boring. The second I opened the basement door, a smell hit me, not the usual damp basement smell. It was warm. Like something had been living down there, and underneath it was this sour stink like old food rotten in a sealed room. I stood there staring into the dark stairwell, and I swear the darkness looked thicker than it should have, like it wasn't just a lack of light. But something sitting there, I shined my flashlight down the stairs and started walking slow and careful because every step creaked way too loud. Halfway down, I noticed fresh marks in the dust, dragged lines like something had been pulled up or down recently. I told myself it had to be the landlord. But the landlord had literally told me he didn't have a key to my basement door, and he'd said it like he was proud of it. When I hit the bottom, my flashlight landed on the breaker panel on the far wall. The basement was unfinished, exposed beam stacked boxes from the previous tenant, an old washer and dryer, and a concrete floor that always looked wet even when it wasn't. I walked toward the breaker, and as my light swept across the corner, I saw something that made me stop dead. One of the cardboard boxes on a shelf was open like someone had been digging through it. The flaps were spread wide, but the box wasn't ripped or chewed like an animal got into it. It looked open like hands had opened it. I forced myself to ignore it and flipped the breaker off and back on. The basement bulb flickered once, then steadied, and the hum of electricity came back. I actually laughed under my breath, relieved, like I'd scared myself over nothing. Then behind me I heard a shuffle, not a mouse, not a rat, something heavier. I froze so hard my shoulders hurt. The basement went silent again, but it was the kind of silence that feels intentional, like something heard you and stopped moving. I turned my flashlight back to the shelves and my stomach dropped. The box that was open wasn't open anymore. The flaps were folded down neatly like someone had just closed it. My throat went dry. I stood there listening, and then I heard breathing. Slow, steady breathing coming from behind the shelves. I backed up slowly toward the stairs without turning away because I couldn't stand the idea of something moving while my back was turned. My flashlight beam shook and swept across the floor, and that's when I saw footprints, bare footprints in the dust on the concrete. They weren't mine. They were too long and too narrow, and they looked damp. Like wet feet stepping into dry dust, the footprints led from the shelf corner straight toward the staircase toward me. My heart started hammering. I took another step back, and that's when I heard the basement door at the top of the stairs creak. I looked up and saw it move, and the door was slowly swinging shut, not like a draft, smooth, controlled, like someone was gently closing it from the kitchen side. Panic hit me instantly. I sprinted up the stairs, socks slipping on the wood, and as I ran I heard bare footsteps behind me on the concrete. Fast, keeping pace, I hit the top step and reached for the door, but it slammed shut right in front of me so hard the kitchen cabinets rattled. I yanked on it, and for a second it wouldn't budge, like something was holding it from the other side. Then the pressure released suddenly and the door flew open, almost knocking me backward. I stumbled into the kitchen and slammed it shut again, twisting the latch until it clicked. I stood there shaking, staring at the door, waiting for it to burst open. For a long time, nothing happened. The light stayed steady. The house was quiet. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. And from behind the basement door, 3 knocks. Slow, patient, like someone waiting to be let in. My legs went weak, then I heard a voice, calm, friendly, too close to the door. It said my full name, not my first name, my full name, the way a parent says it when they're disappointed. Nobody in this town says my name like that. The voice whispered, "He's the back something bad." Almost dark, and the voice sighed like it was annoyed, and I heard fingernails scrape softly across the wood. Then it whispered, "It's okay, I'll come up later." That sentence messed me up more than the knocks did. Because it wasn't angry, it wasn't threatening, it sounded like it was sure. Like it was making a promise. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the house barefoot, not even locking the front door. And I sat in my car with my heart pounding, staring at my kitchen window. The house looked normal from the outside, peaceful, like I was the crazy one. After almost an hour, I convinced myself I was safe enough to go back inside. The basement door was shut. The latch was locked. No knocks, no breathing. I tried to act normal and went to bed with every light in the house on. I fell asleep at some point, but I didn't stay asleep long. I woke up in the middle of the night because the house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I lay there holding my breath, and I heard footsteps. Not upstairs, not in the hallway, on the basement stairs. One step at a time, slow, patient, like whoever was coming up didn't want to rush. I sat up in bed, frozen. The steps stopped. Then I heard the basement latch click, the cheap latch that never worked properly. Clicking open, I grabbed my phone to call for help, but the screen was dead, completely dead. I know it was charged, I'd plugged it in. Then my bedroom door handle started turning slowly, like the person on the other side had all the time in the world. The door opened just a crack, and darkness spilled into my room like smoke. Then that calm voice whispered again, right outside my door. See, I told you I'd come up later. I didn't think I ran. I shoved through the door and something cold brushed my shoulder, like damp skin, and I sprinted for the front door. The lock fought me like it didn't want to turn, but I forced it and burst outside. I ran barefoot through the yard to my car, jumped in and started it. The engine hesitated for half a second, like it was deciding whether to leave me stranded. Then it finally turned over. I sped away and didn't stop until I reached a 24-hour gas station under bright lights. I sat there until sunrise. When the sun finally came up, I went back to the house to grab my stuff. The first thing I noticed was the basement door. It was wide open, not cracked, wide open. And the latch was still in the locked position, like it had been opened from the inside. I stood there staring, then I grabbed a kitchen knife because I didn't know what else to do, and I went down the stairs again. The basement felt colder than it had the night before, like it was exhaling. When I reached the bottom, the breaker panel was open and the switches were flipped into a pattern like someone had arranged them. And sitting perfectly centered under the hanging bulb was a single sock, my sock. The one I wore last night. I looked down at my feet and my stomach twisted because I was wearing both socks. I knew I was. I bent down and touched the sock on the floor with the tip of the knife. It was damp and warm, like it had just been pulled off someone. Then my flashlight swept across the wall behind the shelves and I saw something new. A door, not the basement door. A second door built in the concrete wall hidden behind the shelving unit. It looked old, like it had been sealed and forgotten, and the edges were lined with something dark and crusty. There was a handle on the outside facing me, like it was meant to be open from my side. I stepped closer, and the air around it felt thick and cold. Then I heard it, scratching from behind the door. Slow, steady, like fingernails dragging along wood. Something pressed against the door hard enough to make it bow outward slightly. And a voice whispered from the other side, so quiet I barely heard it. You left it open. I backed away so fast I almost fell. The basement bulb flickered once, and the scratching stopped instantly. Like whatever was behind it had decided it had already proven its point. I walked upstairs without looking back, grabbed my stuff and left the keys on the counter. I texted the landlord I was moving out immediately. He replied 1 minute later with 2 words. Did it not? I stared at that message until my screen dimmed. I never responded, I never went back. And even now, months later, I still think about that second door. Because the scariest part isn't that something lived in my basement. The scariest part is that the basement didn't feel like part of the house, it felt like a lid. Like the whole place was built to keep something trapped. And all I did was go down there for 1 minute, reminded where the stairs were. I almost missed the note taped to the inside of the storm door. Face down, small, cramped handwriting like a child trying to mimic an adult. Landlord making noise, key under mat, go down and reset pilot, I'll credit your rent. My wife was folding laundry in the living room when I held it up. "We have a basement?" I asked. She didn't look up. Apartment 2C has the basement, she said, smoothing the towel flat. I pointed at the note. "This says our unit." Her hands paused for a fraction of a second, then she folded the towel perfectly. Even corners, even edges, then it's probably a mistake. The detail, the perfect towel, bothered me more than it should have. I searched for the basement door, expecting it in the hallway. Nothing. Then I looked behind the washer in the utility closet, a place I'd opened 100 times. And there it was, painted the same beige as the wall, with a rusted knob that hadn't been touched in years. The key was under the mat, just like the note said. I slid it into the lock. The click sounded wrong, like a jaw unhinged, and the stairs dropped straight down. No landing, just concave concrete steps, worn smooth in the middle. Cold air rolled up, still and heavy, smelling like old pennies and something sweet rotten. I flicked the light switch, clicked nothing. Then 30 feet down, a single bulb blinked to life. Orange like a dying star, buzzing not like electricity, but like insects trapped in glass. Step by step I descended, shadows deepened around the faint glow. At the bottom, the furnace crouched in the corner like a sleeping animal, cold dead. The floor wasn't concrete, packed earth, soft and dark, and in it footprints, small, bare, fresh, leading toward a second door I hadn't noticed at first. Oak, warped, black with age, no handle, no hinges, just a seam where the house had grown around it. I should have left. I should have locked the closet and pretended none of it existed. But I pulled my hammer from my belt, hooked the claw into the seam and pried. The wood sighed like lungs exhaling after years underground. The smell hit me, copper and sour milk, thick and curdled. Beneath it, something floral like funeral lilies left too long. Beyond the door, 8 feet square, no windows, no light, but the orange glow leaking in the center, a child's chair. Hand-hewn seat worn smooth, a small desk tilted, candle wax frozen in tears down the side. And a jam jar on the desk, teeth, molars, and incisors, some brown, some white, some still flecked with dried blood. Each one caught the light like a tiny amber eye. Above the desk, scratched into the plaster, hundreds of tally marks, letters breaking down into frantic, desperate pleas. Don't take the stairs, don't. The last marks were fingernail grooves. I stumbled back, the jar rocked slightly but didn't fall, too heavy. And the bulb wasn't at the top of the stairs anymore. Halfway down now, moving closer, as if carried by something unseen. Behind the furnace where I dismissed the shadows, a shape rose, human but wrong. Head too large, neck too long, shoulders hunched, it unfolded joint by joint like a spider, no face, but I knew it was looking at me. A child's voice whispered beside my shoulder, "Don't take the stairs." I didn't stop. I ran, boots slipping, lungs burning, 10 steps. 12, the orange light behind me, warm and sick like a fever. I burst into the laundry room, the door slammed, locked it, deadbolt, chain hooked, my hands shook. My wife was there, folding the same towel, calm, flat. "Did you find it?" "The furnace," I said. "Yes, no, something down there." "I don't have a basement," she said, black eyes calm. "We don't have a basement. Whatever you saw wasn't there." The key was still in my palm, rusted, ancient, warm. From deep under the house came a swing of a door. Not the laundry room, the basement door. A small voice whispered, soft as breath, "Come back." And my mind went blank. Hours later, the washing machine still hummed. When I finally looked inside, the drum was empty, spinning. The lake it had been washing, nothing, like the house was keeping time for something beneath. The house on Maplewood had been empty for 11 years when we moved in. The realtor called the basement a classic root cellar. Very authentic. But she never went down the stairs during the showing. None of us noticed that at the time. We found the timer 2 weeks later. It was an old mechanical kitchen timer. The kind with the loud, ear-piercing ring, sitting alone on a dusty joist shelf in the far corner of the basement. There was no plug, no batteries, just a wind-up dial. The face was yellow plastic. The pointer bent slightly, like someone had tried to force it past 60. I wound it once, curious. It ticked normally, and when it reached 0, it gave the usual harsh ding, 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 ding. Nothing special. The next night, my younger sister Myrrh found a note tucked behind the timer, folded into a perfect square, no bigger than a playing card. The message read, 7 minutes is enough. When to 7, do not go past 7. Do not open the door before the bell. Do not stay after the bell. The handwriting was childish, almost cartoonish, like a 10-year-old had scrawled it with a dime marker. We laughed and decided to test it. Friday, 11:14 p.m., we sat in the basement with the lights off except for a single bare bulb at the bottom of the stairs. Phones on airplane mode, recording audio. Mara wound the timer to exactly 7 minutes. We leaned against the brick chimney stack, backs to the cold concrete. Tick, tick, tick. At 3:20, the air changed, not colder, but thicker, like someone had opened an oven door in winter. At 4:50, we both heard it. A single slow footstep directly above us. Not on the main floor, but on the ceiling of the basement, the floor of the main level. We looked up, nothing but Joyce and pink insulation. At 5:40, the footsteps began walking in a slow circle. Big, deliberate steps, like someone trying not to wake anyone. At 6:12, Mara whispered, "It's walking the exact shape of the kitchen table." We hadn't noticed before, but she was right. The rhythm and pauses matched perfectly. 6 steps, turn, 6 steps, turn. At 6:51, the footsteps stopped right above the trapdoor where we were sitting. Then came the scratching, not fingernails, something blunter, like the edge of a credit card being dragged slowly across the subfloor, back and forth, searching for a seam. The timer read 6:58. Mara's eyes were wide. She mouthed, "We should go." I shook my head. The note had said not to open the door before the bell at exactly 7. The timer rang loud, shattering, furious. The scratching stopped instantly. The footsteps vanished. The air snapped back to normal. We sat frozen for another 40 seconds, breathing through our mouths, waiting. Nothing happened. We ran upstairs, laughing shackily, telling ourselves it was just acoustics, an old house settling, a shared delusion. We left the timer exactly where it was. 2 nights later, Mara went down alone, determined to prove she wasn't scared. She wound the timer to 7 again. I was in my room with headphones when I heard a scream. Something raw, primal, a throat-tearing animal sound. I ran to the basement door. It was locked from the inside. I pounded and kicked. Nothing. The screaming stopped after about 90 seconds when I finally forced the door open with a screwdriver. The basement was empty. Mara was gone. The timer was gone, only the note remained, now unfolded in the center of the concrete with new handwriting underneath the old. 7 minutes is enough, you stayed after the bell. I still live here, I can't leave. Every night at 11:14, the footsteps begin upstairs, always circling the kitchen table. 6 steps, turn, 6 steps, turn. I don't go down anymore, but sometimes when the house is very quiet, I hear the faint winding sound coming up through the floorboards. Tick, 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 like someone is carefully setting it to 7 again, waiting for me to collect what's left of my 7 minutes.